Good afternoon. Business Town Talks on Unity 101 radio station across Southampton. Broadcasting on 1.1 FM and online on www.unity101.org. This show is also available on most digital devices such as Spotify and Apple Podcast and can be accessed from your phone. I'm your host, Santosh Kumar, founder and CEO of B2B Growth Hub, focused on empowering entrepreneurship success. In today's program, we'll be discussing preventive health model of healthy, happier and longer life. Along with my guest, Sudhanshu Patwardhan from Center for Health Research and Education. Sudhanshu, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Santosh.
How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming over here. And as I said to you, probably this session, mostly we are trying to make it educational, trying to see, if listeners can learn at least one thing from here. And I'm sure, we have got, huge experience, large vast of, skills and knowledge in the medical sector. And we'll try to exploit however we can do during this session for everyone's benefit. But before I go into this and we try to see, what is Center for Health and Research Education is, why don't you start with who is Sudhanshu and where he come from?
That's a great question. And thanks for this opportunity to share whatever experience I have over the last 40 plus years in my life.
Great.
I was born in India in the state of Maharashtra,
okay,
western part of India. And I lived most of my early life until the end of my teens in Nasik, which is about 180 kilometers from Mumbai.
Yeah, the holy city.
The holy city of Nasik, an industrial city as well. Now it's kind of one of the largest, fastest growing cities of the region.
Yeah.
And it's, I'm very happy to visit it every so often. I get chance with my work nowadays, increasingly so.
Yeah.
And get to connect with family and friends and also my roots, really.
Wow.
So Nasik is where I'm from. I trained in medicine at BJ Medical College and Sassoon Hospitals in Pune.
Okay.
It's one of the very old medical institutions. One of the claim to fames for the hospital, Gandhiji, Mahatma Gandhi.
Yeah.
He had during his house arrest in the 1920s in the British Raj, he had an appendicitis incident, and he had to be admitted and operated upon.
Okay.
And that was then in the Sassoon hospitals where I trained,
wow,
of course, almost a century later.
So history is there.
There is solid history, and it has also given a whole bunch of doctors to the nation and beyond over the last few decades as a medical institution.
Wow.
I was very privileged to be part of that cohort of medical graduates. That's also where I met my future wife, and so I think the place is very special for me.
So tell us a bit more about your future wife, or at that time the future wife, but now the current wife.
So my future then and current wife. In fact, we celebrated our 20th anniversary of being married together just yesterday.
Wow! Congratulations and belated, wedding anniversary.
Thank you so much. And it's really special to feel that someone I met in medical school, she comes from a family of 3 generations of medical doctors.
Wow.
Which means there's a tradition, there's a whole value system that I was very, very fortunate to see from up close, and that really inspired me as well as I was finishing my medical school there. And my family has a background in sort of in engineering and business. And these two things came together when I decided to leave India in 1999 and 2000 and went for further studies in America. And we can talk about that journey later if you want. But who's Sudhanshu? Well, I'm a medical doctor. I'm British Indian, as I like to call. But you know what? I'm Indian at heart. But I've worked around 4 countries and 3 continents over my last 25 years of working.
Wow.
And that's given me such perspective.
Yeah.
I've only grown more respect for different approaches and cultures, and that's made me a better person, I think.
Wow, that's very important, isn't it? If we can see our better version of ourselves every day or every time when we are progressing, nothing more can be more fulfilling than that, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think this is not the end. I'm hoping that I get better and better every day. There is no end to it.
Yeah, there is a saying which I always say, every day is a school day, or we learn every day, isn't it? Absolutely. Learning should never stop.
Absolutely, Santosh.
So true. Thank you very much, Sudhanshuji. And you mentioned, value system, how important is value for you?
Oh, well, that is the crux of it, right? At the end of the day, I think this is part of the conversation we had earlier offline, of course, and I genuinely believe that if one's going to only work just for money or to feed the family, I think you're a mercenary at the end of the day. Yeah, if you're not doing even that, then you are perhaps a mediocre person. I was saying this to my son the other day, actually, about in a very different context, which we shouldn't necessarily get into, but it's the Ukraine war and mercenaries, and you know what I'm talking about. And he said, well, what is a mercenary? And I said, this is what a mercenary is, who just works for money. Then there is those who are just mediocre people, and nothing right or wrong about it, but that's what they are. The third category is what I believe is aspirational, and that's the missionaries. And it's a broader term. It's somebody with a mission. Somebody who who feels the need and the desire and then actually acts on it to find the purpose of their life. In the Indian philosophy, you would call it the swadharma. One's own, what is one's purpose. And so the value system is all underpinned by this understanding of what is one meant to do, and then find enough things in your life and career to kind of bring it all together, learn in the process, and keep on getting better version of yourself.
Well, you mentioned about three things, and I'm probably going to touch base on all three of them during this conversation if time allows. One is the purpose, second is the mission, and third is the value. And I would like to see the connection between all three of in your point of view, and how it is related with the Center of Health and Research and Education. So shall we talk a little bit about Center for Health Research and Education? How did this concept came, and what was the idea behind it?
Sure. I think what really got us to that point in 2018 when we set up the Center for Health Research and Education, and I keep on saying we because I was very fortunate to co-found it with my wife. My wife and my work partner, Dr. Pooja. And she comes with, as I said, she's a medical doctor practicing here in the UK. I had a long and I believe impactful corporate career in multinational companies, in the pharmaceutical and tobacco sectors. In all of that, what I realized was that there is a gap in the public health space. And it's quite a sort of difficult to define gap. So I'm going to throw a few things here, and then we can hopefully pick it all together at the end of it. So one thing is about the Western world has a lot of technological innovations. Health is given a lot of importance and budget, and there is enough funding for health. And of course, we do discuss about how NHS and how it needs more funding. But trust me, if you go to other countries in the developing world, in the low and middle income countries, as the WHO would call them, health is a very deprioritized topic. So getting access to the latest in health technology at a very scalable level was something I was really feeling the need to get involved in, and couldn't do that in my corporate career. The second thing was a perspective from a clinician, and Pooja's perspective as a practicing clinician, and she works in an area such as St. Mary's in Southampton, which has a very interesting, diverse mix, ethnic mix, as well as socioeconomic mix of people and patients. So there's a lot of learning there in terms of how they access healthcare or they do not access healthcare. What are the barriers for them to access healthcare? So let's not get stuck in the kind of mindset that there is only a need for better healthcare provision in the low and middle income countries. Even in countries such as the UK and the developed world, quote unquote developed, there are pockets of deprivation. And there are those who are disadvantaged. And one area that we really feel passionate about, and which is why Center for Health Research started as a healthcare company. So it is a company, it's a commercial company, and there's a reason for that as well. We want it to be able to work for clients and do something scalable and achievable and impactful. But one area that we really feel about is disadvantaged populations such as mental health patients. Oftentimes, I don't know if you know this fact, and maybe I'm going too deep in this issue.
No, please carry on.
But mental health patients in the UK, they die on an average 10 to 15 years earlier, not because of their mental health condition, but because of their other lifestyle factors, including smoking. So smoking related disease and death is the cause for them to die sooner, and this is entirely preventable. So you mentioned the title of this talk, and I want to kind of circle back to that. There are two preventive health models. So there are two approaches to medicine. Historically, those who have trained in medicine and seen medicine in action as a doctor or as a patient seeking health advice from doctors, there is a sickness model. I'm not well, I'm going to seek a doctor's help. I'm going to pop some pills to get well, and then I'm fine, and then I do whatever I do. That's the sickness model. That kind of brings an ecosystem of patient, doctor, pharmacy, hospital, that. There's the other model, which is aspirational, and what we think we are in a place to deliver given our very, very diverse, divergent almost careers, Pooja and I, and now the team we work with. We come from clinical medicine, corporate sector, looking at problems from a scalable strategic point of view. And we think there is a role for a preventive model, especially cancer. shall I digress into something which is
please.
even more relevant? When you talked about family and who is Sudhanshu, I think one big thing that I mentioned Nasik, where I come from. My mother lives in Nasik. My elder brother and his family are there, and it's a very special place for me. It's also special for me because my father, who passed at a relatively early age with cancer.
Sorry to hear about that.
No, thank you so much. I think it was one of those things where one feels helpless. As a medical graduate in training then, I was young, and I felt that there is much more to what I can do with my medicine and my medical knowledge than just treat one patient at a time, and that's absolutely important. Don't get me wrong.
No, I can empathize with that because I have seen it. I can feel it. What that's and the thing is, at that situation, it seems like we want to do everything to prevent that situation, but nothing is in our control, and we cannot do that. And that is the worst feeling to have at that point. But sorry, yeah,
no, absolutely. Look, and you hit the nail on the head that there are things that are preventable. In this case, it was too late to be diagnosed, and so we lost him. But I think there's a learning there for me that those who can be given better health advice in a timely manner without having to be in a reactive mode, can we be proactive about health and convert this into a sort of positive message that, look, we know for a fact, now, especially now, there is much more research clarity on the role of obesity and cancer. Role of tobacco, smoking or oral chewed tobacco in the South Asian populations. You're very aware of that, I'm sure. So that causing cancer is not a surprise. Everyone knows about it. But then it is a difficult habit to break. And so how do you break that habit with the right support, right professional support by medical professionals?
Yeah.
So, and alcohol, similar problem in terms of not being able to give enough support, not being able to give them the right advice to stay free from those harmful dependence causing chemicals. So for all these things, can we set up a healthcare venture, and which is why Center for Health Research and Education, it sounds very, there is a research and education component which is at the core of what we have started.
Yeah.
But there is a reason for it, Santosh. Unless we understand what we are doing in which populations, subpopulations, unless we really dive deep into it, you are going to copy paste something that is written in Geneva by WHO and say, okay, now let's copy this and use it in Abidjan and in Mumbai and in the remotest part of India, 200 miles from Patna.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
True.
So a copy-paste approach to health is not what we endorse. We believe in doing the research about what is it that the consumer, in the case of some of these addictions and behaviors, the patient, in the case of those who have actually manifested with some health condition because of their addictions, their behaviors, what do they really need? What do their advisors need? Because oftentimes that is the first port of call. A doctor has the privilege to be the person who is going to see a patient coming in and saying, I have this presenting complaint. What do I do, doctor? They trust the doctor. Oftentimes, because of a lot of competing interests and competing things demanding their time, doctors may not be equipped to give the answer on some of the more fundamental preventative lifestyle things. And so we think that we have found a niche here where we'll say, look, for cancer prevention things, starting with tobacco, but obesity is right in that sort of priority for us. Can we enable and empower healthcare professionals in their daily work to give better advice and counseling and treatment to patients who come to them with tobacco addiction, obesity issues, and give them empathetic advice? Not, I mean, I don't know if you remember this from the times of India, and even here sometimes healthcare practitioners can be very condescending, very patronizing. You should do this.
Yeah.
And the doctor and the patient is, yes, I will do it for sure. Yeah. And nothing happens. So there has to be empathy, there has to be understanding of their needs, and some motivational interviewing.
And how does it lead to, Sudhanshuji, how does this lead to happy, healthier and longer life if you use the preventive health model rather than the model which is a sickness, model?
Well, you tell me. I think it's rather logical, but of course I will still explain what I mean by that. I think prevention is better than cure is a commonly known phrase or a way of looking at things. How does it work in practice? I mean, take any example in life, anything that you're using in, be it technology, your car, your television, anything that needs regular maintenance. We do that. You take your car for MOT, not just because the government requires it, but also because there's a logic behind it. You often pick up things that you wouldn't have, or annual servicing. Now, the body is not just a car. It's not a machine. It's a very sophisticated machine, which means you can't just do
very advanced as well.
Very advanced. Every time I think about the human body, I feel
something new comes.
This is amazing, and you just have to just go deep, and like, wow, this is some amazingly evolved machine. But it needs care. and it needs looking after. There are some fundamental things that we have to do with our body, which are going to keep us healthy, and healthy is a broad term, mind you.
Yeah.
I don't want to sort of start defining what health means.
Yeah.
Individuals have different bandwidth for what they will accept as health and not health. But there is some commonsensical approaches to it.
Yeah.
And if we can follow them, I think it's only logical that there are higher chances.
Will I be right to say that, I think there is a saying that, money is the root cause of all the evils. And if you are not healthy, if you're not happy, or you don't have long life, it's because money is the reason behind it, And when you don't have right health as well, then also you will lose money, isn't it,
Yeah.
So actually, saying that, probably let me just correct it. Money is not the root cause of all the evils. It's love of the money which is the root cause of all the evils.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I need to think about how you phrased it, and I'm sure this is one instance of love not doing the right thing. Yeah.
So I think absolutely right. Rather than sickness model, I 100% second you that preventive health model is more better. And coming from India, coming from the yoga's model, coming from that daily exercises, even if we don't have any problem, that kind of shows where we are coming from. And if entire world adopts that one, probably slowly we'll start moving away from the sickness model. But life is not that simple for everyone, isn't it?
It is not. And look, trust me, it is not easy even for we can all. It's very easy to preach. Yeah, I believe so. And I think without unnecessarily boasting about it, I would say that and one has to make a conscious effort to live healthier lives.
Yeah.
An example, I know it's quite sunny outside, which is quite an unusual thing for Britain. And so we welcome the sun. It's rather hot outside, and I choose to cycle from home to here, which is not that far, about 4.5 miles.
Yeah.
But that's a choice I have to actively make. Now, the temptation is to hop in a car and come here in 10 minutes, lesser than the time it takes to ride down the cycle, and in comfort without any air conditioning. So it's a choice I have to make. And I think it's a matter of giving ourselves that level of clarity, and that goes back to our value system, right?
Yeah.
So it's a different kind of value system I'm talking about here. It's not about how we treat others, it's about how we treat ourselves. And it takes a bit of thinking. It can't be an automatic thing.
Yeah.
But then I think we have the advantage of doing this with children from age 0, and in schools and in the society. If it becomes the norm, people automatically will accept that as a way of life. Just like smoking and alcohol was the norm of the 60s and 70s, and we are paying for that even now in the Western world in terms of cancers and other diseases. The norm has to be running, cycling, walking, consuming unnecessary substance, less amounts of unnecessary fancy substances just to follow fads.
Sure.
And these will kind of hopefully become part of a normal way of behavior.
Well, I would like to go on that, and the value system we touch base again. But before that, you mentioned about your family coming from a business and the technology background. Do you want to touch base on that? What that means? What do you mean by that?
I've thought a lot about it, and I think having seen my father, who was in the technology space, but from
what was he doing?
So he was a metallurgist by training, and from the Indian Institute of Technologies, and he was good at his business. Wow. He was good at his scientific technological knowledge. Converting that into a business, I saw him as a child. Before he passed away, I saw him convert that into a sustainable business.
Wow.
But scaling it up, I remember seeing that was something that he would have loved to do. But I don't think we got a chance to see how that was done. My brother has done a good job taking over the business and running it very well over the years. I think the big thing for me was seeing how some of these very niche areas of either technological stuff or scientific work, how can they be taken to the next level? And now, when you talk about health and healthcare, that's a very obvious one to apply it to.
Yeah.
Everyone in the world, the 8 billion plus people in the world, want and need good health.
Yeah.
There is nobody who's going to say, I don't need good health, I'm fine. Yeah. So they need health, they need good health, and they need all the right sort of support in terms of advice if you want to follow a preventative model.
Yeah.
So that's where, if we can apply technology, and I think something like this, not just for entrepreneurs to listen to you and I chatting, but if there is as a healthcare student or a healthcare professional who is watching and listening to this, would say, okay, so what does this mean in my practical work? How do I scale up what I'm doing? Because what I'm doing is best for my one patient or 10 patients in 2 days.
Yeah.
How do I do that for 10,000 and 100,000 people? And that's where I think... or a million or a billion, and finally they 8 billion. Because see, again, go back to one simple example. Tobacco, 1.3 billion people in the world consume cigarettes and oral tobacco. 1.3.
My God.
You would have thought by now, seeing those warnings, they would have stopped, right?
Yeah.
It's not the case. And which keeps me motivated, because that's what I look at and say, look, there are those who need some support to quit, because obviously they have tried, most of them have, by the way, and they have failed, which means that something is not working. Our preaching and patronizing is only putting them in a corner. That's not, you can't just, bury your head in the sand and say there is no problem.
Yeah.
Nothing is happening. So it's a matter of giving support to those who need it. And tobacco is one example. Alcohol similarly, and obesity, I think, is one of the biggest epidemics of this century. I don't know if you realize this, that as medicine has advanced and all the technological wonders of scalability have been applied, be it the viruses and beating viruses with vaccines or antibiotics for most bacteria out there, what is the leading cause of death today? It is not infectious diseases. It is the non-communicable diseases, as they call them, NCDs, as the World Health Organization would call it. And that's basically the cancers, the cardiovasculars, the obesities. So these are not caused by a germ coming in the body and hitting you.
No.
It's by what you have done to your body over years of neglect and following fads and fashions, but also not looking after your body. And it's, again, I'm not trying to get into a blame culture. You are not looking after your body. How should one look at one's body?
Yeah.
And it's a matter of constructive kind of building that one up.
Yeah. So then there's a few questions which I wanted to ask you, and I don't want to miss that on this show.
Sure.
Number one is, you have been a practitioner. You have done your medical education, did your, entire career into that, went to US, went to, Shanghai or Hong Kong? Singapore, you went over there. And, after all this, you came to UK and then you started doing MBA. What was the reason behind that?
Well, you picked well on that one. So look, I mean, when I trained for medicine, as I said, I enjoyed it, and I got my medical degree. I switched into research, and as you said, I was in the US and California. I was very fortunate actually to work with Pfizer, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies. We know them for the vaccine now, of course, but it's been around for forever. And in their San Diego facilities, I could see how research is done in a very corporate, massive environment of R&D. Singapore with Eli Lilly was another experience of a big multinational corporate doing good in terms of finding new medicines.
Yeah.
When I came to the UK for my next step in the corporate career, I was always sort of conscious that I'm just a medical doctor. I'm just a science man. I'm just a person who is at the interface of science and the bigger bad world.
Yeah.
How do I navigate? And if I have ideas about some innovative way to do better in improving people's health, how do I scale it up? So I approached my then employer and said, look, I want to do an MBA. This is something that will make me really well-rounded. And I'm so glad I did it. I mean, London Business School was my aspiration. I was quite fortunate to get in there. And you'll not believe, Santosh, the class was a mix of people from so many backgrounds, so many nationalities, and all were from mid-career kind of life stage. So they were not coming there fresh from graduate school, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But they were coming with not just their undergraduate training, but also their corporate and their real life experience.
Yeah.
So the conversation in the class was an easy job for the professors, right? Because the professor has to just fire a little fire, and the class would catch fire.
Yeah.
And so we had a phenomenal 2 years of working with all these classmates, and that has really opened my eyes.
Yeah.
I came out of that thinking, wow, so the world is not just a medicine and a treatment.
Yeah.
How do you scale it up? How do you win people over to make this happen? Why is it that they are holding back delivering this? What are the macroeconomic reasons behind it? What are the organizational structural challenges in corporations not executing something? And but you know what? The funny thing is that was in 2012, 2013. I finished it. It has taken me over years to kind of start finding how to apply it. And when I started this business with Pooja, I think that was when the reality hit that, look, now you are running a business. Here is where your MBA is going to come really handy. Yeah. And it has. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity I got.
So you don't stop learning. You keep on learning.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. What's the philosophy behind it?
What's the philosophy? I think we learn. I mean, look, it's from practical experience, right? The moment you stop learning, you're going to be not just outdated, but I think it's just wrong. I think we are very blessed to have one life on this planet.
Great.
We have to make the best of it.
Great. Sudhanshu, thank you very much for sharing that real insight. And on this preventive model, I think you mentioned about some core principles, some values, some mission, some purpose of it. What is that bigger purpose which is driving you over here? What is that purpose which keeps on motivating to keep on going for this? What is your purpose for running this Center for Health Research and Education?
In one line, it will be giving back what I have been very fortunate to get.
Wow. And, the mission behind it? Where you see this company in next, 5 years' time?
The company is a vehicle. See, I think I look at businesses as a vehicle to deliver change, because you want to bring people together who are like-minded, who have the same values, back to the same. It's funny, we are going back to the same sort of point.
Yeah.
So the mission of a corporation is essentially defined by who are in the corporation. For now, I see this company as a vehicle for us to deliver some change in the cancer prevention space.
Great.
And if we can achieve some tangible impact, not just, yes, we have done a project, tick box, get somebody else's money and do something else. That's not how we operate. We want to have sustainable, on the ground reality change in a positive way. And then that's a very proud moment.
Who is your role model?
Because there is so many role models, and there are. So can I ask?
Who inspires you?
Well, I'll tell you what. It's funny. At the beginning of this, before we started this interview, I mentioned a public health doctor from a very remote part of India, and it will not be wrong for me to mention his name, Dr. Abhay Bang, a cardiologist by training, and he set up something which I'm so phenomenally impressed with, which is he and his team and his wife, who is also a doctor and an obs-gynae consultant, they did some phenomenal work 30 years ago in a very remote part of India where there was a high rate of infant mortality. So kids born would die very soon because of the conditions in which they were born and the hygiene that was not followed and so on. And they did some very fundamental public health changes in the behavior of the dai, the woman who looks after the baby born, the mother who has just given birth, and the family ecosystem. And they changed the mortality rate in a dramatic way. So less children were lost in their early months.
Wow.
And that became a model, was published everywhere. And I think that part of his work is very inspiring.
Wow. Well, I'm sure you and Pooja both are doing great work over here. You are trying to make changes into how this corporate culture is going at the moment in the medicine history or, healthcare model. But for my audience purpose, well, you are listening to Business Town Talks on Unity 101 radio station. Today we are talking about, preventive health model, how to become and how to live healthy, happier and longer life. Sudhanshu, if you have to share, some of the great, insights or maybe valuable entrepreneurship lessons from your experience to our listeners, what could be the top two for that?
Top two. I think there's far more that I would love to share, but maybe for today's purpose, let me think. I think one for sure, we go back to the mission really, that I have to understand what the mission is. I have to clearly articulate for myself and I and Pooja in this case. So we need to know what we're doing it for. If there is lack of clarity and confusion about what is it for, you're starting from the wrong point.
So the clarity
in mission, that this is what we want to achieve. So we say, look, we are going to bridge the gap between whatever is said at the policy level to actually what's done in the practice level. We are going to do prevention for cancer. Clear mission. But the second is almost a continuation of that first thing, which is the team that you put together. And we are very proud and very fortunate. I keep on saying fortunate, but that's partly by design, partly by luck. We actually go and seek people who are aligned with our mission.
Wow.
Unless we do that, I think you're going to get somebody who is coming there for the wrong reason. I do not want to work with the best person if she or he is not there for the right reason. They have to believe in what we're doing. And then we will work with them. If they have gaps in their ability and experience, and the same with us. And same with us. We will have gaps in our abilities and we have to complement. But we have to have a same aligned vision. And I see this in India with our team. Oh my God. There's such a brilliant team. And it makes me, every time I visit, every time Pooja visits and we meet them online every day, we realize how profoundly they are motivated by our mission. And I think that's the way to make it sustainable.
So they need to have the right mindset, right synergy, right values, and everything will be aligned. That's what, I think, as the second learning. That's great. Thank you very much for that.
Welcome.
If people have to connect to you, Sudhanshu, how will they connect?
Oh, there's, I I love to talk to people. You might have seen that me doing that in the social settings. But formally, you could go on the Center for Health Research and Education website. It's chre-uk.com, and on the contact us page there's an email address that our team monitors, and so they will definitely forward that to me. I like to be on Twitter. I don't tweet as much because I think it's a great forum and a great social media platform. It's just that I don't have time to do that. So maybe that's an aspirational thing for me. But I'm there as Dr._Sud, and I tweet about things that I'm passionate about.
Thank you very much. Well, Sudhanshu, it has been a pleasure to have you over here on the Business Town Talk Show with me as your host, Santosh Kumar, and producer Kelly on Unity 101. For our audience purpose, hope you have enjoyed the deep dive on all the tips and tricks to help us grow, help you grow, and have the preventive healthcare model for happy, healthier, and longer life. With our guest Sudhanshu and from Center of Health Research and Education, we will have another thrilling and exciting story next week. As always, you can head over to businesstowntalks.com to sign up to our email list, as well as visit unity11.org and go to the Listen Again section just after 4 o'clock today, and you can listen to this session again. That's all for this episode. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sudhanshu.
Thank you so much, Santosh.
Community Hour is aired live daily.